this topic here is going to be good to know. This is regards to accounting for partnerships. I know a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, self-employed, have their own business, and want to eventually grow. Now, with growth comes with having more people involved, and since you have more people involved, you're going to have more personalities that are going to be within the business. So, because of that, you may be involved in a partnership that's going to require you to put together an agreement that each partner agrees to. And that part of that agreement is going to consist of how the income and loss will be distributed by each partner. So this is an example of that, pretty much figuring out ways to or methods to use in order to share the income and loss amongst the partners. So here's a scenario here. Bob and Frank began a partnership. Bob invested $85,000 into the partnership, and Frank invested $65,000 into the partnership. The partnership is called Bob and Frank Barbecue. So Bob and Frank Barbecue generated $250,000 in income. So Bob and Frank have to, figure out how to distribute this income amongst each other. So number one, we'll take it step by step. So number one, prepare calculations showing how the 250,000 income is allocated when it's shared equally. So this is easy here because as you scroll down here, you see that, 250,000 is the income shared equally amongst two people. You cut that in half, that's $125,000 that's distributed to each partner. Pretty easy when it comes to sharing it equally. All right. Now for number two, you got to prepare calculations showing how the 250,000 income is allocated based on the proportion of their initial investments. So this is another method or way to use to allocate the income by each partner. So this is also something that can be used as well. So if I scroll down here, okay, we see that Bob invested more than Frank, which means that the allocation percentage from Bob is going to be more than Frank, which means that the $250,000 income that was generated by the company, most of it is going to go to Bob, and the other 43% is going to go to Frank. Okay, so 57% of that 250 is 141,667. That goes to Bob. 43% of it is going to go to Frank of $108,000. So total those out, that's 250,000. That's fair. If that's what the agreement states, if it states that, hey, we're going to distribute income or loss based on the initial investments by each partner, great. As long as they're agreed on it and they're okay with it, that's fine. But that's the most important thing, is to make sure that the partners agree with the income and loss distribution amongst the partners. So number 1 and 2 is pretty easy. Then we get to number 3. Number 3 is a little bit complex, and just because you got to do a little bit more in order to figure out what's going to be distributed amongst the partners as far as with the income or loss. So number 3, prepare calculations showing how the $250,000 income is allocated based on the information that's below. Okay, so this one here, we're going to take it step by step. So the first thing here that they tell us is that Bob was given $30,000 salary allowance for the year, along with a 10% interest on his initial capital investment. All right, so before I move on, I'm going to do a little setup here, because I know number 3, you can see it here, the way how it's structured. I actually want to set it up a little different so this can make a little bit more sense than what you see here in the spreadsheet. So I'm going to first, I'm going to put Bob over here, and I'm going to put Frank over here, and I'm going to put the income that's generated, over here. I want to make sure I have enough space. All right. So Bob and Frank. Okay. So Bob was given $30,000 salary allowance. I'm going to stop right there. So I'm going to put over here salary allowance. Ooh, I hope you all can see this. Okay, salary allowance, and it's for $30,000. Okay, that goes to Bob. So this is going to take away from this income here. And now we go back up here. It says, along with a 10% interest on his initial capital investment. So let's see. This is going to be interest allowance. And this is us taking what, 10% of the initial investment from Bob. So the initial investment from Bob is $85,000. So we're also going to tack on $8,500. 10% of 10% of 85,000. That's going to be $8,500. So we finished with the first bullet point here. I'm going to put a check mark there. Okay, the second one here is Frank was given $20,000 salary allowance for the year, along with a 5% interest on his initial capital investment. Great. So Frank's allowance was $20,000, and then Frank's interest allowance is going to be 5% of the initial capital investment of Frank, which is $65,000. Make sure I'm giving myself enough room. Yep, $65,000. So that's going to come out to be $3,250. Right? So when we add these two together, the salary allowance and interest allowance for both Bob and Frank, okay, we're going to get for Bob $38,500. And then for Frank, we're going to get $23,250. All right. So then after we add those two together for Bob and Frank, we now got to add the totals from Bob and Frank's salary and interest allowances together. And then we're going to get $38,500 plus $23,250. We're going to get $61,750. All right. So we scroll up here. Oops, here we go. The second bullet point is done. So we accounted for the salary and interest allowances for both Bob and Frank, and we added those two together. Now the third one is the remaining balance of the income is shared equally. Okay. So what we have to do first is, if I can zoom out, we're going to have to, now this is the income here. I'm just going to put on here income that was generated by the business. We're going to have to now take $250,000 and subtract out $61,750. Okay. That's going to give us, well, the number's already there. Oh, it's right here, $188,250. So 250 minus 61,750, that's $188,250. Okay, so this means that this amount needs to be shared equally amongst Bob and Frank. So we divide this amount by 2. That should give us, I already did this, $94,125. Okay, here we go. There we go, $94,125. Okay, so underneath Bob, 94 is going to be an addition of $94,125, right? Yes. And also it's going to be an addition of $94,125 for Frank. And then we go to Bob first to figure out what distribution of income is going to go to Bob. So we take $38,500 plus $94,125. That's going to give us $132,625. It's going to go to Bob. And then the Frank, 125. That's going to give us, Frank is going to get 117,375. Okay, and that's it. This is how much Bob is going to get in income. This is how much Frank is going to get in income. Now we gotta, it's good to check to see if this is correct. In other words, we got to make sure that these two amounts do equal to 250. So I'm going to take 132,625, add 117,375. Okay, and that's going to give us 250. We did allocate the correct total amount. Okay, so as you can see here again, it's a little bit more you have to do when it comes to accounting for the salary allowance and interest allowances. A little bit more to do, but hey, if this is something that they want to agree on, the partners, that's completely fine. But again, these are just the three ways, as you can see here, the three ways that is used in order to allocate the income that's generated.